Hi everyone, and welcome to this GTC session today. We're going to be talking about scaling learning and training experiences to the enterprise using 5G and NVIDIA Cloud XR. My name is Matt Coppinger. I'm a Director of Product Management at VMware, focused on AR and VR. And I'm joined today by Nick from Accenture. Nick, would you like to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Thank you, Matt, and thanks everybody for tuning in on this session. My name is Nick Rosa, and I lead the extended reality team in Accenture Europe, but I'm also the global offering lead for Accenture Immersive Learning, which is our offering for learning, training, and education in VR for our clients. And today I'm going to talk to you about our immersive learning transformation at scale framework and all the requirements and the steps that are needed in order to have a successful immersive transformation. And obviously, we're going to have Matt talking about what VMware can provide in order to facilitate this process and how to use Cloud XR to superscale and supersize the kind of deployment that are possible with 5G and with NVIDIA Cloud XR framework.
All right, let's jump straight in, Nick.
Absolutely. So what you see here is the Accenture framework for immersive learning transformation at scale. As you can see, there are multiple steps here. We like to co-create with our clients when we do large transformation programs. Probably you heard that Accenture recently deployed a very large number of VR headsets to our colleagues and our workforce. And we follow the same kind of recipe here. So we start with a strategy. We try to assess what are the problems, what are the pain points, what are the most important business goals that we want to achieve. And we try to create some use cases that are then prioritized by impact and feasibility. In this way, basically, we have a roadmap, and we can also do a maturity assessment of where our IT infrastructure and our processes can support the kind of use cases that we want to deploy, and where do we have to change this kind of infrastructure or processes in order to accommodate the transformation. Then we start with the design. We start designing all the different kind of modules that can be for learning, but can be also for any kind of VR experience. We try to understand what are the learning elements and interaction elements that are needed for each of those experiences that we're going to develop. We define the KPIs that are going to be basically the litmus test for a successful pilot once we deploy the application in the field. We also define the change management, and this is very important because once you have a successful pilot and once you have an application that works, then you need to have a plan on how to deploy this experience and this kind of applications at scale. And then we work with our IT department to match the infrastructure requirement. That it can be, for example, LMS integration, single sign-on, cybersecurity for cloud services, and all the kind of nitty-gritty detail that are related to the technicalities of an XR deployment at scale. And then we develop in an agile manner. Accenture has also their own proprietary DevOps process for XR. We do the process iteratively. We develop, we test, we evaluate, reiterate, and go on. And after we have done the development of the first pilot, what we do is to deploy the pilot and evaluate the pilot against the KPI that we define during the design phase. And this is important because once you have the KPI that are designed by a business stakeholder, it's easy to understand if the pilot is successful or not. And then we start putting in place the change management plan. We try to create as much as possible an enterprise training store, and this is where VMware and NVIDIA Cloud XR can help very much, and we're going to see in a second. And we adapt and scale the solution, and in a way that's also it's required by the different kind of regulations for different kind of countries where we are deploying the solution to. And then we start the support. Accenture has a global footprint, and this is very important for large transformation at scale because there's a need of localization, there's a need of support for help desk, there's a need of local updates and bug fixing, and this is how we can usually help. But if you go on the next slide, please, Matt, we can see all the different kind of steps that are needed in order to have a successful deployment at scale. And in many of those steps, VMware and NVIDIA Cloud XR can help. It's important to create a digital strategy roadmap. And it's important, as I said, to define all the different kind of use cases and create a sort of a library of those use cases that will stay in one single place and will be consistent with time. It's important to select the right vendors, and it's important to select those vendors in a way that they're not going to disappear in a couple of years from now. There are some very, very exciting startups in the field of XR, but it's also very important to select partners that are stable, because you don't want to invest your CapEx into technology that is going to be obsolete or is going to be discontinued in a couple of years from now. It's important to put in place a learning and change management strategy, because the adoption of this kind of technology is not very easy for companies that have some kind of legacy training system and procedures in process. So pushing VR headsets to everybody maybe is not the right strategy. So having a solution that is flexible to deploy those kind of trainings on multiple kind of devices, that can be headset, that can be screens, can be tablets, mobile phones, and so on, is the best solution possible. Having a modular infrastructure is key. And this because the technology is changing so fast, and there are not yet standards for all the kind of things that we are deploying at scale, that it will be possible that in the future, some bits and pieces of the infrastructure will need to be changed and swapped with other kind of solutions. So having an infrastructure that is flexible enough to allow you to change this kind of infrastructure in the future is absolutely key, but also is key to capitalize on the content that is created. You don't want your content to be available on some headset and devices right now and become completely unavailable, or to be completely reworked in the future because you're changing your infrastructure. And this is where NVIDIA Cloud XR and VMware can help. It's important to define the technical architecture of what you want to do, the kind of integration and point of connectivity with a system of records and single sign-on and learning management system and dispatch system and so on, and build, deploy at scale and support. So how can you deploy the different kind of headsets to different kind of parts of your company, but not only headsets, but also tablets and normal 2D screen training to different part of your enterprise. And these are all problems that can be possible to solve. It's possible to solve using technologies like 5G, cloud rendered XR, and so VMware and NVIDIA Cloud XR. And VMware is absolutely key for what we are trying to do when we do large transformation at scale using cloud rendered XR, because the bit that VMware provides is the provisioning on demand of each of the session that the user want to run on their devices. That can be headset, that can be tablets. And Matt, would you like to give us a little bit of an overview of the functionality that VMware can provide for this kind of transformation?
Sure, thanks, Nick. And I love the plan, and I think it's so important to plan these things and have that strategy around your deployment and your adoption. And I think the plan is really important because people kind of forget about some of the challenges, around deploying new tech. And although there seems like there's a lot of challenges, there are tools and things to help you get over those challenges. But it's really important to identify what those challenges are when deploying new technology in the enterprise. And I think some of those things that are identified here, most of the things identified here, it's everything from how do you stage the devices and get them ready to be deployed at scale, make sure they're secure so you can manage them remotely. How do you integrate them with existing systems, identity systems, for example? How do you get your apps and content onto those devices? How do you then manage access into that content? How do you measure who's accessing that content or secure access to specific content and applications? And then another piece is obviously pulling off the analytics around understanding how many people are using the device. How often do they access a particular application? How long do they spend in that application? All these kind of things are the things you want to understand and have a solution for when you're deploying AR and VR in the enterprise. But I think also one of the other things is not to underestimate the user experience. So sure, you can have the infrastructure and the tools to manage the devices and get everything deployed, but you also mustn't forget the end user experience. So from AR and VR can be so to some extent intimidating, a little bit disorientating if you're not used to this technology. So it's really important that when a user puts on the headset for the first time, they have a comfortable, delightful, and simple experience in order to access the content. And so At VMware, we are focused on meeting these technical challenges. And obviously we are an ISV, we have products that meet these challenges and solve these problems, but we're also a customer. So it's important to understand that VMware has its own large-scale internal VR deployment. And, a lot of our products are built around, helping our IT team solve these challenges in the enterprise. So let's take a look at kind of the VMware Workspace ONE solution for XR devices. Now, VMware Workspace ONE is that digital workspace solution. You can get this from VMware today, and it's really focused on solving many challenges, but primarily we offer kind of two areas to this. The first one is device management. So VMware Workspace ONE allows you to manage PCs, Macs, iPhones, tablets, Android devices, rugged devices, and now the latest XR devices. So what we're offering there is with Workspace ONE, it's the central place to centrally manage all of your devices. And I think to your point, Nick, around being able to deploy apps and content to phones, to desktops, to XR devices, you want that simple, single console, right, where you can deploy and manage all of these things. And that really for us is VMware Workspace ONE, and that's where we start. So that offers device management. So you simply can enroll devices, so you stage devices and enroll them into the management solution. And from there, you can really just send them off to the users, and you can manage them remotely. You don't ever have to bring them back to install software. You can push software out. You can secure the devices. And most importantly, you can use Workspace ONE to remotely support those devices. So for example, if a user is in a headset and needs support, an IT admin can simply open up a web browser, connect to that headset, and actually support the user, kind of see what they see and provide guidance and help as necessary, as well as doing things like pulling application logs or device logs, or remotely sending administrative commands to the device. And the other piece, of course, is analytics. So I mentioned Workspace ONE allows us to measure all of this, the activity on the device. The final piece is identity federation. So this is a key thing that many people forget is how am I going to actually understand who is using the device and who is using the application? And so Workspace ONE has a function to kind of federate your corporate identity. So we can plug in Azure AD, Active Directory, Okta, Ping, whatever corporate identity system you have, you can plug into Workspace ONE. And why is this important? Well, what this enables us to do is allow users to use their corporate credentials to log into a device and access applications. And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but that's a key functionality of Workspace ONE. So that's right in the middle is the management solution. But as I mentioned earlier, one of the key things that we found at VMware is the importance of the employee experience. And that's where Workspace ONE XR Hub comes in. Workspace ONE XR Hub is a headset application written to run on Android-based standalone VR devices. It is deployed down to the device using Workspace ONE, can be configured as kiosk mode, as a kind of enterprise launcher, so that when the user powers on the device, the first thing they see is Workspace ONE XR Hub. And at Workspace ONE XR Hub allows us to enforce a security layer. So the user will then be asked to enter their corporate credentials, or maybe multi-factor authentication, whatever authentication processes you need to log into the device. And then Workspace ONE XR Hub presents the application and content that you have provisioned centrally from Workspace ONE available to them. And what's important with XR Hub is it doesn't just present native VR applications. So maybe applications written for the Quest or the Vive or the Pico. We can also present access to remote VR applications running in a data center or running on a PC. We can also present web, SaaS, and VDI applications. So if you needed to run a video or have a user access a web form or a Windows application in VR prior to or after their training, you can also do that. And we also offer a lot of customization. You can see my background here. This is an example of a custom VMware environment that we created and is loaded at runtime. So you can completely brand and customize the XR experience. So for your company, when your users power on the headset, they're getting a branded experience for you, very much locked down and controlled. And it's a very simple UI. So those are kind of two key components. You've got the device administration, device management, you've got the end user experience. And one of the things we talked about was scaling, scaling this solution with 5G and NVIDIA Cloud XR. And this is where the bottom right piece comes in. Many customers have been utilizing PCVR in the last few years, creating some very high fidelity training and learning experiences. And one of the challenges that they're faced with is, they want to be able to democratize this. They want to be able to deploy this at scale to all of their users, but it's not feasible. It's not cost effective. It's not practical to be able to deploy a graphics workstation that can drive these experiences to every user in your organization. So how do you solve this? Well, with the advent of the all-in-one devices, the Pico Neo 3, the Oculus Quest 2, the Vive Focus 3, these are standalone devices, lower cost. You can deploy those to your end users at scale. But of course, these devices can't run the PC-based applications. So this is where NVIDIA Cloud XR comes in. We can run your existing PC VR applications in the data center on a virtual machine that makes it very easy to manage and scale out. And then we simply use XR Hub running on a standalone to connect to that virtual machine remotely and stream the PC VR application to that headset. So that gives you so many kind of benefits. And I think we're going to talk about that next, about some of the benefits you get from using Cloud XR at scale.
And Matt, this is absolutely key to what I was talking about before of capitalizing the content for any large transformation program. It's important to have one single repository where you can put all your learning content or your training content or your XR experiences, and you know that whenever the technology is going to change, you just have to change the client on the headsets, but the consistency of the experience will remain exactly the same.
Absolutely, and within VMware, we deploy WebXR applications. So we want to be able to launch a WebXR capable browser. We deploy native applications. We deploy remote apps, web and SaaS apps are also part of it. We do require a user to watch a video before they actually go through some of our training experiences. And we can deliver that too. And one thing that I forgot to talk about is single sign-on. We've all had that pain of trying to put in username and password in VR. Well, XR Hub and the Workspace ONE identity federation solution allows us to actually avoid that. So at VMware, what we do is the first time a user uses their device, they use their corporate credentials, and what we do a checkout. So what happens is we register the device centrally with the user, and that allows us then to implement single sign-on. So we then ask the user to set a PIN on the device, and only they know the PIN. So they know the PIN, they can enter in the PIN to access XR Hub. We then use a user certificate to single sign on the user into XR Hub. And then the great thing is we can configure our native applications, our SaaS applications, and any other application to use that user certificate for single sign on. So now we've essentially eliminated the need to enter in username and password to access applications. And yet every application, every experience understands who is using it, the identity. So that's a key part. And the great thing about our solution is we can also do the single sign-on into the virtual machine on the back end. So XR Hub is integrated with VMware Horizon, which is our virtual desktop infrastructure product. And to your point, Nick, that can actually spin up, one virtual desktop, 1,000 desktop, 60,000 desktops. We support on-prem and cloud deployments, right? So we can really, through pools of desktops, we can configure a kind of golden image, Steam VR, Win 10 desktop, press a button, and as soon as people start accessing their desktop, we can provision more automatically. And when you actually, when you try and access your remote application, what happens is we actually orchestrate the login on the back end. So we single sign you into the desktop, we launch the application, and then we connect you to that application using NVIDIA Cloud XR. So not only is it a very automated, scalable solution on the management side, it's also a very simple and easy access experience for a user on the headset as well. And I think now people are probably getting to understand the benefits of using a solution like VMware Workspace ONE alongside Cloud XR. With Cloud XR, you're getting the benefits of the mobility of a standalone device, but you're also getting the power of a graphics workstation. And to your point, Nick, is this allows us kind of broad adoption, right? We can send these devices, these all-in-ones out to users. So that gives us that broad adoption. It's fast, so we can manage everything centrally, right? And just send these headsets out so we can quickly deploy, as soon as a headset is staged, it's sent off to a user, right? And we can quickly, just easily, and in a fast manner, kind of deploy those headsets. And then
One of the things that is very important to say also is that the application is 100% compatible with OpenXR standards, which means that if an application is built with OpenXR, it's possible to modify the kind of controls for all the different kind of devices that are on the market, tablets, self-contained device, wired headsets, and so on. So the designers and the developers of application can build on the OpenXR standard, deploy on CloudXR systems, and then distribute to any kind of device that is compatible with the OpenXR standard in terms of input and output.
That's right. And obviously the CloudXR technology is available on multiple headsets. I know it's available for HTC and Quest today. I know there is also a Pico client available. So, this is a great thing is that CloudXR works across the different headsets. Workspace ONE XR Hub works across the headsets. And that's really important for us. At VMware, we're renowned for our virtualization, technology. And at the heart of that is abstracting above the hardware. And that's really where we're coming from. We want to make sure that regardless of the device that you choose now or tomorrow, we can support that solution. And I think CloudXR has also taken that approach, is regardless of the device that you choose, you can deploy CloudXR and leverage that investment in your PCVR apps and content.
Another thing that I think that is important to mention is that CloudXR is compatible with multiple cloud providers at the moment. And it's possible also to deploy both in the cloud or on premise, which is very, very important. So for many companies that, for example, have some very tight security requirements, or even for companies that are in need of having absolute reliability of the application without having any potential problem related to network lag, it's possible to deploy CloudXR on premise rather than in the cloud.
Yeah, and obviously there are networking requirements around CloudXR. Anytime you want to stream 4K at 90 frames per second. It's bandwidth and it's bandwidth heavy, and it requires a low latency network, and that's where 5G comes in. We did a deployment with Vodafone at Coventry University here in the UK, deployed a private 5G network on campus, and that really, obviously, the headsets today don't have 5G connectivity, but you can easily hotspot a headset to a 5G enabled phone, and our app was doing a kind of 400-mile round trip. And it was perfect. It had the network bandwidth and latency, and we were running the application on VMware Horizon, our VDI product, on campus, and it was available to students to grab a headset, connect to the 5G network, and have access to that virtual machine. And one of the other great things was that actually, because we were running the app on a virtual desktop, the 2D application, the 2D view of the app on the virtual desktop, we could stream to Zoom or Teams. So students that didn't have a virtual headset could follow along the instructor or other students that were exploring the human body in this VR, this high fidelity VR experience. So really powerful, great example of CloudXR and 5G in action, along with VMware's solution.
And Matt, this is super impressive. I think that we have very few seconds until the end of our session. Shall we remind all the pointers to get in touch with VMware, Accenture, and NVIDIA?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
So you can find us on LinkedIn, Matt and Nick. You can also Google CloudXR, and you can find all the information related to CloudXR and NVIDIA. Please keep in touch if you want to know more. We have a lot of very interesting case studies that we can show you, and I'm pretty sure that you're going to be impressed with all the different kind of solution at scale that both Accenture, NVIDIA, and VMware can offer to the market.
Yeah, and I'd highly recommend, I have a couple other sessions at GTC, so please find those sessions. I'm doing demos of Workspace ONE XR Hub, talking about how you deploy it with CloudXR. So please check out those sessions. Thank you for attending today. Thank you, Nick, for your time. Really appreciate it, and have a great GTC, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy.